Senator Hatch.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. On two different occasions, my colleagues and I wrote letters to you, Mr. Shulman. In the first letter on March 14, 2012, we asked about selective enforcement by the IRS and requests for donor information. Then we wrote again on June 18, 2012, to request more information about the IRS's practice of requesting confidential donor information. As I wrote in my March 2012 letter, quote, "It is critical that the public have confidence that federal tax compliance efforts are pursued in a fair, even-handed, and transparent manner without regard to politics of any kind," unquote. The responses that I received from the IRS were anything but transparent. The IRS responded to these two letters on April 26, 2012 and September 11, 2012, and both of these responses were signed by you, Mr. Miller. These responses did not disclose that the IRS had any reason to believe that it had improperly targeted Tea Party or other conservative organizations, or improperly asked for confidential donor lists. I ask unanimous consent to put all four letters in the record at this point.
Without objection.
Recently, we have learned that the IRS was in fact aware that the IRS had targeted Tea Party and other conservative organizations. We know that by June 2011, at the latest, Lois Lerner, the director of the Exempt Organizations Group in D.C., was aware that IRS examiners had issued a, quote, "be on the lookout," unquote, listing regarding Tea Party and other organizations. We also know that on May 30th, 2012, TIGTA briefed you, Mr. Shulman, about its ongoing audit of these practices. Yet when you testified before Congress on March 22nd, 2012, you said, quote, "there was absolutely no targeting," unquote. To this day, you have not corrected your testimony, even though you know that the IRS was inappropriately screening Tea Party organizations. Now, Mr. Shulman, why have you not come forward before today to correct the record and acknowledge that there was, in fact, inappropriate screening occurring in the IRS, the organization that you headed?
Let me answer a few things. One is the full set of facts around these circumstances came out last week in the TIGTA report, which I read. Until that point, I did not have a full set of facts about.
Yeah, but you knew this was going on. Why didn't you let us know when that's what we were inquiring about when we sent these letters to you?
What I knew was not the full set of facts in this report. What I knew sometime in the spring of 2012 was that there was a list that was being used. Knew that the word Tea Party was on the list. Didn't know what other words were on the list. Didn't know the scope and severity of this. Didn't know if groups that were pulled in were groups that would have been pulled in anyway.
But you knew
and I took what I thought at the time, and I think now, was the proper step when a concern is brought to the Commissioner of Internal Revenue Service, which is to make sure that the matter is being looked at by the Inspector General.
But we sent you letters inquiring about this with a number of senators on those letters. And you should have corrected the record. And you should have done it long before today. And that's the point I'm making. Mr. Miller, your signature's on both of the responses that I received from the IRS. Nowhere in your responses did you indicate that you knew the IRS was improperly selecting Tea Party organizations for extra scrutiny. Nowhere in your responses did you indicate that you knew the IRS was asking improper questions about donor contributions. You just sat on that guilty knowledge. Mr. George stated that he briefed you on May 3rd, 2012 about TIGTA's audit, so we know you were aware of it at the time that you responded to my second letter, if not both letters. But you didn't mention any of this in your responses to me, to the Senate, or to any other congressional body. Now, Mr. Miller, that's a lie by omission. There's no question about that in my mind. It's a lie by omission. And you kept it from people who have the obligation to oversee this matter. On Friday, you swore under oath that you had told the truth in your prior responses. You said that the IRS had been guilty of, quote, horrible customer service, unquote. Mr. Miller, what we have learned about the IRS in recent days goes far beyond horrible customer service. Why did you mislead me and my colleagues, my fellow senators, and most importantly, the American people, by failing to tell us what you knew about the exact subject we were asking about? Why didn't you tell us?
Mr. Hatch, I did not lie.
You what?
I did not lie, sir.
You lied by
I answered
omission.
those
You
questions.
knew what was going on. You didn't, and you knew that we'd asked. You should have told us.
I answered the questions. I answered them truthfully. Did I know about the list? Yes. Not on the first letter, by the way, because the timing, I wouldn't have known for that. On the second letter, we answered those questions, sir. Frankly, the concept of political motivation here, I did not agree with that in May. I do not agree with that now. We were not politically motivated in targeting conservative groups. That's borne out by Mr. George's report.
What else
The
could
fact.
you call it? He just said he hadn't found that up till now. And today's statement was a little more definitive than the one he gave to the House. Now, let me just say this. You knew this was going on. You knew we were concerned. You knew we'd written to you. You had our letters. Why didn't you correct the record? Why didn't you let us know? We would have solved this problem a long time ago.
TIGTA was looking at the cases, sir. And
Well, so
TIGTA was
it was
doing
TIGTA's responsibility, or was it yours?
I'm sorry?
The commissioner relied on you to answer our letters. Why didn't you answer them? And why didn't you tell us this information that you knew,
I
at least
did-
on the second?
I believe I did answer them, and I did answer them truthfully, sir.
My time.
Thank you, Senator Hatch.